Big sales. That's the way I love to start a show, man. Tone's got the best attitude. He really does. He's got the best attitude. Sills, let's have a great show. I go, what do you think? This is Ben Simmons, man? We don't take nights off here, Hoss. You know, that's actually one thing that I will tell you. One of the things that I was taught from my failure in the NFL, never take anything for granted. Never take anything for granted. You know, as much as I kind of was my own sabotage guy when it came to my NFL career, one thing that thing and that experience did teach me is don't take anything for granted. Show up every day. Give your best effort. No matter if you're sick or what, just show up, man. Just show up and have the best effort you possibly can. And get this, people respect you for that. I think that's one of the reasons why many people come back and watch us, because what we do each and every single day, we try to do the very best we possibly can and putting on one of the best shows we possibly can. Every day we do that. It's always been a mantra of mine. You know, my grandfather was a blue-collar dude. Went to work every day, fireman, drove a cement truck, you know, did all that stuff. Was a lobster man. Showed up every day to work, man. And you know what? That so reminds me of the Eagles and the Heat. These guys just show up every day because there's a culture in your house. There's a mindset. You know, when you live in a culture, you become part of the culture, winning and losing. How many times do we see that in sports and in business and in life? You got a shitty environment. You become sometimes part of that environment. No matter what, right? No matter what, man. Crazy time right now. Anyway, NFL is always front page. Sports is a front page right now. And I got to say this to you. Let me show you why the Philadelphia Eagle fans are always bitching at the national media, because a story's playing itself out now. I'll get to the whole James Harden deal here in a second. And you got a player who's never won anything trying to dictate policy inside your organization. But that starts with the owner. What's the storyline from last night's Lakers and Nuggets game? It's not that the Nuggets are the best offensive team in the NBA. What can the Lakers do? How did the Lakers lose this? Dude, the Lakers were a playing team. The LA Lakers were a playing team. But yet that's the narrative. It's like the Cowboys. All due respect to the Cowboys, but what have you done in 30 years? And when you play the Cowboys and when you're the Eagles and you're the better team, you're the better roster. Hey, and you know what's crazy too about the Eagles? For the last 25 years almost, you guys have been the best team in the NFC East. But it's always the narrative is what? The Cowboys. Like last night, I don't give a shit about what the Lakers didn't do. The Nuggets are better. Personally, you ready for this? I think the Nuggets are going to sweep them. And that is something Adam Silver and the NBA don't want to hear. One of their Tiffany teams going to get swept in the Western Conference Finals. How many people really believe that the Lakers are going to win one game? Maybe one. Maybe. But you're not better than them. They got the best player on the planet. They got the best offense. I mean, I don't know. But yet here we always do, like we do with the Dallas Cowboys. We always talk about the Cowboys like the Cowboys have won Super Bowl championships. Hey, it just shows you what the media does and how the media covers certain teams. The most covered teams in the last, will we say that in the last 10 years? Lakers and Cowboys. You got a bubble championship and you got no championships with the Cowboys. Yet we cover those two teams like these two teams are the Patriots and the Golden State Warriors. They're not. The most successful team in the NFC in the last what? Would we not agree? Who's been the most successful team in the NFC in the last 23 years? Is there anybody more successful? Now, the Giants have 2 championships in that span. Anybody else in the last 23 years in the NFC that has been more successful? The Rams have been to 2, 1-1. The Eagles have been to 3. 49ers have been to a few. Yeah, but Sway, the Giants over the last, 15 years? I mean, what have they really done? What have the Giants done in the last decade? I mean, it's been a horrible decade for the New York Giants. Who's been the best team? Seattle? I don't know. It ain't your 40 whiners. That's for damn sure. I mean, it's been the Eagles, right? Have they not been? They've been the best franchise in the last 23 years. Yeah, we cover the Cowboys. Or the media covers the Cowboys. And you would swear that that was like a team that's having the same success as the Patriots. All right. Hey, before we get going here, and before I get into the James Harden stuff, appreciate it, Neil. Thank you for coming aboard. Guys, Friday, thank you again. We're going to have 2 Hall of Fame voters on. By the way, my boy Howard Balzer, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, he covers the Phoenix Cardinals / Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to get his thoughts on Jonathan Gannon so far, on what Gannon's impact has been out there. And I want to know if they're going to cut loose a D-Hop June 1. I want to know what his take is on Jonathan Gannon. Hall of Fame voter Howard Balzer will join us at 4:30, and then our usual conversation with our friend Jason Cole, 5:30, another Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. So we'll have him at 5:30 Eastern. All right. So DeSean Jackson has informed the Philadelphia Eagles that he would like to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. Really a great career. What was he, a second-round pick? What was DeSean Jackson? Was he a second-round pick? He was a second-round pick. Number 49 in 2008, was it? He was the 49th player taken. I think that rings a bell, right? 2009, second-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. On the All-Rookie team. Reception, 641. Yards, 11,000 yards. You know what? That's actually more yards than I thought that he had. I can't believe it. This guy's actually got more receiving yards than Lynn Swann. 58 touchdowns. And there it is. The 49th player taken in the 2008 draft. Where would you rank him? He wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. Where would you rank DeSean Jackson in Eagle history? Top 10? Top 15? Top 20? Top 30? Where would you put him in Eagle history? I think it's pretty cool he wants to retire an Eagle. Wow, Fly says top 5? I don't think so. Top 10. Wow. Top 5 Eagle wide receivers ever. That's a good way to look at it. Is he one of your top 5 wide? Who's been a better wide receiver in Eagle history than DeSean Jackson? Mike Quick? I don't know what you call Carmichael. Kind of like a hybrid tight end, flanker, I guess. What other wide receiver put up the numbers consistently year in and year out? Hey, Tone, do me a favor. How many years did he play? DeSean Jackson in I think there were 2 stints too also for him in Philadelphia. Irving Fryer. So Fryer, Quick. T.O., no way. T.O. had 1 year. You don't put T.O. in your best wide receiving group all time because he had one season. That's not a career. That's a year. I didn't ask you. Okay, I didn't ask you who had the best receiving year in the history of the Eagles. I asked you who are your top receivers in the history of your franchise. DeSean Jackson played 8 years in Philly. That's a career. That's a career. Calvin Williams, no way. Mike Quick, Jeremy Maclin, D-Jax is better than that. DeSean Jackson's better than Jeremy Maclin. I'm not even going to debate that. I'm not even going to debate that. DeSean over Fryer? Yeah, I would say so too. I would make this point to you that Mike Quick and DeSean Jackson had the greatest wide receiver careers in the Super Bowl era of any wide receiver that's played in Philly since 1967. Okay? Those are your two best wideouts. Now, Devontae and AJ have every opportunity to put their names alongside those guys. But one season or two, and by the way, Devontae's on his way to being considered in that conversation soon. I would say another 2 years. You could start putting that conversation for Devontae Smith on where his place is in Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver history. Okay? Pinkston, come on, man. I mean, your two best wide. Carmichael again. I think Carmichael is a little bit of a hybrid. He's a tight end, flanker, slot receiver. I'll tell you what, he was a unicorn before his time. He really was a unicorn. Harold Carmichael was a unicorn. I mean, he was a mismatch everywhere you put him on the field. Carmichael, I get it, but I don't know wideout, man. I mean, a 6'9" wide, how they used him and how Vermeil used him in that offense was weird. He is a Hall of Famer. I get it. I'm with you. But I'll tell you what, and Carmichael, again, you could, like, in today's NFL, Carmichael would be insane to try to defend. Can you imagine throwing the football into the end zone to a wide receiver you can't touch who's 6'9" and has hands like that? Harold Carmichael would be undefensible today. You couldn't touch him. Back then, you mugged him. Okay? Yeah, but Quick is in there too. So where would you put him? Me, I would probably put him in the top 15 greatest Eagles that has ever played. By the way, I wrote down my top 10 Eagles in the Super Bowl era. So that's from like 1966, 67 until today. Here are my top 10 Philadelphia Eagles. And once again, I think it's pretty cool that DeSean Jackson wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. I do. I think that's pretty cool. I love that. Mike Quick is more my style, by the way. Yeah, Quick had a great career. Mike Quick had a great career in Philadelphia. And you know, if I were going to compare him to anybody, he was probably like a Marvin Harrison kind of guy. Or like, I'm trying to think, who was the wide receiver in Washington all those years? He was kind of like that. What was that guy's name that was the wide receiver for the Redskins back in the day for Joe Theismann and those guys? He was kind of like that kind of guy, you know, put up really great numbers. Was it going to be a big mouth kind of guy? Art Monk. That's exactly when I think of Mike Quick, I think of Art Monk. Is that fair? I think of Art Monk. I think Art Monk was a great football player. And I do. I think he was a centerpiece in that passing attack that the Redskins had. And when I see Mike Quick, I see Art Monk. That's kind of the guy that I see. Really a great football player. Before we get into our topics, here are my top 10 Eagles. And thank you, DeSean Jackson, for giving me the ability to do this. This is in the Super Bowl era now. So I'm not going Jurgensen. I'm not even going concrete. Okay? I'm going in the Super Bowl era. Okay? Number 10. I got Seth Joyner. In the Super Bowl era, I think Seth Joyner is your most complete linebacker you've ever had. Have you had a linebacker better than Seth Joyner? That is a more complete guy. Could cover tight ends, blitz, hit, tackle, and leader. Have you had a better linebacker than Seth Joyner? You may have had a better hitter. That would be debatable. Have you ever had a better guy who could cover? Have you ever had a guy who was a better run fit guy? Once again, Greasy, well, that is the Super Bowl era, but I think Seth's better than Bergie. Bergie's best years, in my opinion, were in Cincinnati. Not that he wasn't a great player on that Super Bowl team in 80, but in my opinion, I think Bergie's best years were in Cincinnati with the Bengals. So I got Seth Joyner number 10. And for the record, no disrespect to Bill Bergie because he's one of the greatest Philadelphia Eagles of all time. No disrespect. Number 9. You ready? Jason Peters, offensive tackle. I think this guy, as great as Lane is and as good as Jordan Mailata looks, Jason Peters, man, this dude, when his eligibility's there, remember something for me. And by the way, we got 2 Hall of Fame voters on. I'm going to bring some of these names up to them. We got 2 Hall of Fame reporters on today. And DeSean Jackson, I'll ask them what they think of him. And I'll say this, and again, we're doing this all in the Super Bowl era here. I think Jason Peters, when everything's said and done, you know that I'm on the panel. I put all the names together for all these guys to debate. I think Jason, dude, as much as John Runyon was a great ball player, I think Jason Peters is the better of the players. He's just a superstar ball player. The guy's a great football player. I mean, there's no debating him going into the Hall of Fame. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Number 8, Big Sills. Greatest Eagles in the Super Bowl era. I get Jason Kelce. I'm trying to think in the Super Bowl era who have been the greatest centers. Webster, Kevin Mawai. I guess Otto. Look how few of these guys are. Look how few. This is where I'm going here with Kelce. Look at how few Hall of Fame centers you can think of in the Super Bowl era. Otto, Mawai, Webster. Kelce. There are not a lot of dudes at that position. Mike Pouncey's is a good player. And I like Mike. I know Mike well. Kelce's better. Kelce's better than Pouncey. Pouncey will probably get to the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day. He'll probably get there. Pouncey will probably get there. Okay? Mike Pouncey will probably get there. Even his brother, Marquise Pouncey, was pretty good with the Dolphins. Kelce's great, though. Kelce's one of the greatest players at his position in the last 55 years. That's incredible. He's number 8 for me. Now we're getting closer to the top 5. So far, my top Eagles, because DeSean Jackson wants to retire Philadelphia Eagle. In the Super Bowl era, I got Seth Joyner 10, Jason Peters 9, and Jason Kelce 8. Number 7, I got Donovan McNabb. 99 to 2009 quarterback. I think Donovan McNabb, if everything is, even though that I have question marks about him as a player, I would say this to you. Donovan McNabb is a borderline Hall of Fame player. Borderline. His pettiness stopped him, in my opinion, from crossing the tape. He was too petty. He really didn't know how to control his emotions like Jalen Hurts does. Donovan McNabb is a skilled athlete and a skilled quarterback. but he wasn't very skilled socially in how to deal with the media. But when you watch Jalen and then you think of Donovan, they're two different people. And that's why I think you're getting the best of both worlds when you're looking at Jalen Hurts compared to a guy like McNabb. McNabb is a very skilled player, tremendously skilled, but I thought his pettiness stopped him from being even greater than what he could have been. This guy should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He might be one day. He might be, because you would look at him and go like this. Sills, who would you take in a football game, Phillip Rivers or him? I'm probably taking Rivers. But I actually think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame player. Okay? I actually think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame football player. Number 6, I got Randall Cunningham, 85-95. I think Randall Cunningham was ahead of his time. He was Patrick Mahomes in an era where Patrick Mahomes was not accepted. You got to remember something about Randall Cunningham. Had one of the worst offensive lines in pro football. Had some good skilled people around him. You had management that wasn't supporting him when it came to putting players around him. And yet, he won ball games and did a lot of it on his own. Randall Cunningham in today's NFL, that's the prototypical type of quarterback that you want to have on your football team. It's Randall Cunningham. You want to have Randall Cunningham on your team. You want Randall Cunningham as your quarterback. If you told me, Sills, of all the quarterbacks that you've seen in the last 25 years, what quarterback was ahead of his time? He's one of them. Marino, too. He's one of them. He's ahead of his time, man. Randall Cunningham could do everything. Let me just put it to you this way. If you put Randall Cunningham on that offense that you have in Philadelphia right now, he would never lose a ball game. He would throw for 7,000 yards. He would run for 1,500 yards. He basically would be a better version of Lamar Jackson because he's more gifted. And you know what? You don't have to hire a punter. He was an All-American at Vegas as a punter. He could theoretically punt for you. That's how great an athlete he was. No doubt about it, Manchester. That guy, you talk about dual threat superstar, Randall Cunningham was ahead of his time. Now, again, you talk about another guy who's socially inept when it comes to doing shit off the field. Another guy, a lot of things stopped him from being accepted. And let me just say this to you, too. If those two men had better relationships with the media, those guys would probably be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, both of them. But they didn't. They alienated everybody, including their teammates. They were not the best teammates. Okay, so the end, I mean, I've heard, and by the way, this is not a rip that I'm just coming up with some epiphany here with McNabb. He's admitted it. So is Randall. The relationship with Donovan McNabb and Randall Cunningham today is 10 times better than it ever was when they were playing and they were active. Number 5, here we are now. We're into 5 now. Top 5 Big Sills greatest Eagles. Again, I'm happy to hear DeSean wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. I got Eric Allen here. 1988 to 1994. Cornerback. Maybe one of the most overlooked players when it comes to people who deserve to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What a great football player. And for the record, come on, man. Come on, man. Leroy Butler. I get some of these guys play different positions, but Leroy Butler, and you debate. Here, my problem with that whole thing was you debated that guy, Leroy Butler, got him in. And Eric Allen, you haven't debated, and you don't look at his numbers and what he brought to the team? Man, I don't know how you don't have that debate. And he is on my list. And by the way, one of the reasons that guys, just so you know, one of the reasons, why do you think we put on Hall of Fame voters here for you guys? Why do you think Jason Cole is on every week? So you can remind Jason to have a conversation about Eric Allen every year. Do you understand that? What, you think I just put that guy on just to put him on? I don't have to put anybody on. I don't have to have a guest. By the way, Bruce Arians will jump on with us next week, along with Keith Jones and Seth Joyner. We got a big week lined up. You think I put Jason Cole on just to put him on? I put him on for you. Don't have any notion that I just put that guy on to put him on. I put him on for you. Jason's one of the top voters at the Hall of Fame. You can remind him. And Howard Balzer next hour. Eric Allen. You do how many times those guys all say to me that they read the columns and they see Eric Allen? Do you know that Jason Cole now says this to me? Sills, make sure you get a lot of paperwork up on. And so does Jared Bell on Eric Allen this year. I'm doing that to get him in for you. So when you guys are ripping him, I might not go down that lane. He's going to vote for your guy. There's Fat Jason. I'm like, Jesus, please. I'm trying to work the room here for you guys. You guys are insulting a guy who could put your guy in. I mean, let's use some common sense, folks. I mean, right to a tone. I think they think that I'm putting him on just because I have to put him on, or I could put anybody I want on. I don't care. I put him on because I want him to vote for Eric Allen this year. Bruce goes, but they don't. Well, there's 50 writers, Bruce. And you get 5 guys convincing these other guys they'll go along with. Because, Bruce, think of this. How the hell did Leroy Butler get in? How did Fred Dean get in? How did Jason Taylor get in? Because you had people petitioning for him. Dude, I'm trying to get this guy in. Don't question me. I'm trying to help you. All right. So I got Eric Allen 5. Dwight Stevenson, way to go, Greasy. He's a tremendous football player. At number 4, I got Brian Westbrook. 2002, 2009 running back. Has there been a better running back than Brian Westbrook on your team when it comes to versatility, throwing the ball to him, running the ball in between the tackles? I think he's your best offensive running weapon. And I know Shady was a great ball player too, but man, if I had to pick between, and I did, I'd pick Brian Westbrook all day long. He was a 2.0 version of Marshall Faulk. Could catch the ball, and he was great in blitz pickup. Go back and watch some of the blitz pickups for Brian Westbrook. Man, was he phenomenal. There wasn't anything that he wasn't great, and there wasn't anything he wasn't a top-flight skill set player. Man, was he great. What a great football player. Brian Westbrook, man, catch it, block, run it. What a great ball player. Now we're getting into the top 3. I got Lane Johnson, present, right tackle. Man, look at that. You got 3 in the Big Sills top 10 offensive linemen. You got Peters, Kelsey, and now Lane Johnson. Lane is as good. Lane is as good as Ron Yeri ever was, or Forrest Gregg. He's going to go down in that conversation as a right tackle with Forrest Gregg and with Ron Yeri. Dude, no Shady. No, I picked Westbrook. As good as I think Shady was. I think Shady's a top 15 guy. I would say Shady's a top 15 dude. But I got Lane number 3. Here are my top 2 Eagles in the Super Bowl era. Ed Reed's the greatest safety in the history of the National Football League. Greatest safety. Troy Polamalu, Ronnie Lott, Kenny Easley, Jack Tatum, them dudes. But Brian Dawkins, okay, if I had to pick a second guy, would I pick Troy Polamalu or would I pick Brian Dawkins? I'd probably pick Brian Dawkins, okay, over Polamalu. Just nothing. And he was there's certain dudes you do this. Guys with tone setters. I think maybe force setters. Yeah, I think Dawkins is better than Atwater. I think he's better than Atwater. I think he's better than Atwater. I think he's better than Palomalu. And I think, by the way, no disrespect, I personally think that those two men that you mentioned, Troy Palomalu, and Steve Atwater, were tremendous football players. Great tone setters. I think the safety position. See, that's one of the issues that do you know? Can I? This goes. Man, I never thought about this. You know why you guys didn't like the style of defense? Why do you think you didn't like the style of defense of Jonathan Gannon? Why do you think you didn't like it? You know why? You didn't have an ass-kicking Andre Waters, Wes Hopkins, Brian Dawkins at the safety position that set the tone. You didn't have people back there knocking snot bubbles out of people, making those people do, you know what I'm talking, man, doing the Frankenstein on the ground. You didn't have anybody back there doing that. As good as those 70 sacks looked, you guys loved that. But the one thing that you did have, man, with them other defenses, you had people that came up and crippled people. They crippled people. Dude, Andre Waters crippled guys. Brian Dawkins crippled people. They'd hit you and go, come on, boy. Taste that, boy. Go back and watch Ed Reed when he hits people, man. Them guys were tone setters, man. Dude, and every single football team that had a great defense, Doug Plank on that 46. Everybody had tone setters in them defenses. Brian Dawkins is a tone setter. Could cover, hit, cover. Was not afraid of covering tight ends. Beat people's asses. See, the Eagle defense didn't have that kind of guy back there. They had get this. You know what's funny? That's the only thing the Eagle defense didn't have last year. Was an ass kicker. In Super Bowl 52, Malcolm Jenkins set the tone by knocking out Brandon Cooks in the first quarter with a huge hit. The Eagles never looked back. God damn, do I love that. You know, you go back to your huddle when you got a guy like that that's sitting back. I had Benny Blades in my huddle. And when he's knocking Tim Brown out, we're playing Notre Dame, and he knocked Tim Brown out. We get back to the huddle, Jerome and Stubbs, and we just start laughing. And Benny looks at us and he goes, "Why are you laughing?" I go, "This bitch is over. They're not coming back from that. We beat them 57-3. They weren't coming back from that. We beat Notre Dame after that hit 57-3. Knocked him out. I just started laughing. Benny looked at me and goes, "What's so funny?" I go, "That team is defeated in the first 4 minutes of this game. You knocked that guy out. He never came back. Benny knocked that guy out, man." I just started going, this thing's over, man. They have no shot to beat us. No shot. You imagine beating Notre Dame by 51 points? We beat them by 51 points. Because this guy knocked Tim Brown out. I was like, holy shit. Oh, no. Oh. I'm so happy we got Hall of Fame voters on now. Wow. Whew. Jim Brown passed away. Let me finish up. Reggie White. How appropriate. 85-92. Let me finish this here. My greatest Eagles. Seth Joyner, 10. Jason Peters, 9. Kelsey, 8. McNabb, 7. Cunningham, 6. Super Bowl era. Eric Allen, 5. Brian Westbrook, 4. Lane Johnson, 3. Brian Dawkins, 2. And Reggie White, 1. Jim Brown I had the pleasure. I'll show you this, guys. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm, mm. Let me do this. I want to do this for you before we continue here. I had great conversations with this man numerous times, and I did a lot of stuff with Jim with the America I Can program he had. I would say to you that Jim Brown, in pro football history, his place, Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Jerry Rice, Brady, it's those guys. It's Jim Brown, Reggie, Lawrence Taylor, Jerry Rice, Tom Brady. Then it's the rest of them. It's the rest. Do you know why it's the rest of them? Because when you tune and turn their game film on, they look like they don't belong. You watch game film on Jim Brown and you're watching him playing against the NFL during his era, and you're like, he doesn't belong. He just doesn't belong. When you watch Lawrence Taylor, they just don't belong. They look like they're in a different speed. When you watch Reggie throwing guys around, or you watch Lawrence Taylor pass rushing, or you watch Jerry Rice catch a football, they were just different. Different. Very complex man. Retired at the age of 28. In his 9 years playing in the National Football League, led the National Football League in rushing. Look at this. 8 times. 3-time most valuable player. 5 yards a carry on a football team that really had nothing else. It was just Jim Brown. Carried the entire Brown organization on his back. Syracuse, he got jobbed out of winning the Heisman Trophy because he was black. They gave it to some stiff, I think from Oregon. Maybe Oregon State it was. He should have won the Heisman, but he was black and he was considered a militant. You know why he was a militant? Because he believed in rights. You know, he walked on at Syracuse at first because they didn't know if they wanted to have black players on the Syracuse campus at the time. Truly one of their greatest activists. Supported Muhammad Ali. I mean, you got to remember something about guys like him and Russell and Kareem and Muhammad Ali. Those guys actually did stand up for civil rights. Those were actual people. They weren't these paper-made Colin Kaepernicks. These people were this. Jim Brown was this dude. He embodied it on the field and he embodied it in his life. A lot of controversy in that man. But when you talk about him playing in the National Football League and where his place is in history, it's cemented as one of those dudes. Like if you were to put a Mount Rushmore, who would be your Mount Rushmore if you were to put a Mount Rushmore of NFL players? Jim Brown's on it. I think you got to put Tom Brady on it. Jim Brown, Tom Brady, Jerry Rice. And I think you could debate either Lawrence Taylor or Reggie. But I think you'd have to put Reggie, or I think you'd have to put Lawrence Taylor up there. So if I'm going to do my Mount Rushmore of pro football greatness, Jim Brown. I'd have Brown, Rice, LT, and Brady. Those are your four. Got to put Brady's got to be there. Brady, Brown, Rice, and Lawrence Taylor. With Reggie knocking on the door. Those are your five greatest football players, and those are your four Mount Rushmore guys. Nobody embodied the game like Jim Brown. My uncle, this guy right here. And those legendary New York Giant games played against Jim Brown. Played against them guys forever. And I said to him, I go, what was it like playing against Jim Brown? He goes, it was like a whistle on a train when he ran through the line of scrimmage. Sam Huff would say when he ran into you, he would just fold you like a chair if you weren't in proper position. Andy said that those games at Yankee Stadium and Brown was playing in them games was like a freight train. You just heard whistles. And by the way, you see this? This is Robustelli's New York Giant Ring of Honor jersey. Handed to me. It's an heirloom. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he's in the New York Giant Hall of Fame. Said that playing against, I can't believe we got two Hall of Fame voters who know Jim Brown are on today. Brown was one of the early Black Pride activists. Harry Belafonte, Ali, all those guys. And hey, what a legend. Whew. Dude, getting on the phone and I had Jim Brown on my show. My wife used to produce, and Jim would come on the program. Actually came into my studio. And the reason he came on was because of Robustelli and my relationship with Robustelli. And he would come in and sit down and talk to me and just say, hey, no one could stop me. How great do you think Ernie Davis would have been if he wasn't taken away so early? My God, Ernie Davis and Jim Brown in the same backfield with the Cleveland Browns would have been unbelievable. Would have unbelievably brought another championship to the Cleveland Browns. Ernie Davis was a special football player. Special football player. Jim Brown, for sure, man. Wow. How about those iconic games with the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day at Franklin Field? Dude, that shit gives me goosebumps. I'm sorry, I'm a big historian on that stuff. Shit, man. Yeah, I mean, those games must have been insane. All those great Hall of Fame players playing against one another. No rules. Just playing ball against each other. Concrete playing against Jim Brown. Robustelli, Huff. Cat Cabbage. I'm mentioning names you guys probably don't know. 9 seasons. Imagine if that guy played longer. Shit, he led the NFL in rushing 8 of those 9 years. 3 MVP awards. Won a world championship for the Browns. Charlie goes, I saw games at Franklin Field. Gale Sayers was the most exclusive back in history, probably. There's only 2 backs, Ray, that I would put in the same conversation as one another that were so electric like that. OJ and Gale. And maybe Barry. Maybe Barry, too. Did OJ go to Syracuse? No, Juice went to Southern Cal. Dan, you realize Syracuse had Brown Davis, Floyd Little, and Larry Zonka consecutively. Absolutely. Floyd Little's a Connecticut guy from New Haven, and we talked about this Also, Moose Johnson played there too, if I'm not mistaken. And so did Jamie Morse. He played there too, one of the giant backs from back in the day. They had great backs that were back in that time. Absolutely. And even some of the Hall of Fame running backs, they did a great job of recruiting the Northeast. It was Penn State. It was Penn State and Syracuse and to some extent Boston College during my time when they were recruiting. But they weren't really gigantic. The only true power in the Northeast was Penn State and Syracuse. And then Penn State and Joe Pa started taking over because they just started out recruiting Syracuse. Notre Dame, too, is in that section of the country. They got a lot of guys in that section, too. So, look, man, Chuck Bednarik versus Jim Brown. Poof, Jesus criminy. Hey, you better wear two mouthpieces. You better wear two mouthpieces. Eric Dickerson's the best running back GG I've ever played against. And he's a friend. He's a friend. Barry used to say, give me an inch. Actually, Greg, that was stolen from Gale Sayers. Because Sayers' line back in the 60s was, all I need is an inch of daylight. Give me 1 inch of daylight. That was Sayers' line. 1 inch of daylight. There's a John Facenda NFL films on that 1 day of daylight. He goes, all I need is 1 inch of daylight. You think Adrian Peterson's up with? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jim Brown would be a success today. With these shitty defenses that they have in the NFL, Jim Brown would. Do you understand he ran a 9-100? This guy was an All-American lacrosse player. Do you know he's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame? And he's also in the College Football and Pro Football Hall of Fames. Jim Brown was a Hall of Fame lacrosse player. He ran a 9-100. This guy was incredible. 9-100 at 240 pounds at 6'3". You don't think that would play out today? And especially playing against some of these shitty defenses? Jim Brown had 2,000 yards rushing today. You couldn't stop that guy. See, the defenses back in the day, you know why those defenses were better? Not better athletes, but you know why they were better technically? They were able to keep the players on their field longer. You didn't have a salary cap. Players, if you were drafted one place, you stayed in one place. Over 12,000 yards in 9 seasons. Yeah, what do you think? and let's not forget something. They played 12 games. They played 12 games for like half of his career. Hey, Tone, remember that. He played 12 games, then it went to 14. 9 seasons, 1,200 plus yards, 25 receiving, 106 TDs in 9 years. Absolutely. They played 12 games for a boatload of his years. Then they went 14. Jim Brown never played in a 16-game schedule. They never. I think the most yards he ever had was like 1,900 or 18 something. Like 1885 or maybe it was 1,900 yards. He had something like that, and he did that in 14 games. I think he did that. Okay? I think he did that. Yeah. All the Hall of Fame guys want me to get stuff together for him because they're going to start doing stuff. 160 yards a game. No. He's the only man, Neil, in pro football history to average 100 yards a game. That's the stat. Nobody in their careers have averaged 100 yards a game. He's the only man that has averaged 100 yards a game for every game he played. I can't wait to talk to our Hall of Famers today. Fly Eagle Fly. Jim Brown was a super dude, super duper athlete with a beast mentality. I remember those 12-game seasons. Bo Jackson, another one of those elite guys. Absolutely. Let's dedicate the show today. Sills, absolutely. Today's athletes are bigger and stronger, faster in all sports. Absolutely. But not, I would say this to you, Yale. Everything you just said is true. But do you know why they're not more technically sound? Offensive linemen that come into the NFL today, you need Jeff Stoutland because you don't have 4 years of coaching. You don't practice like you used to practice in the day. Shit, you don't even practice in the NFL like that anymore. It takes you longer to develop a great skill set to play offensive line or any position in the NFL because the NFLPA and the NFL they don't have the same practice standards. You don't have preseason games. You don't have 3 months of training camp. You don't have any of that stuff to teach technique. The technique that these guys get today, you have to go over and above to have yourself prepared to play in today's NFL. Because most of the kids that come out of college today are exactly what Yale said. No, Yale, I'm not debating that. I'm not saying that today it's not safe for today. It is. But you're not technically more sound just because the fact you don't practice it. How could you be more technically sound today when you have 2 hours of practice a week and you don't practice in full gear and you don't hit and you don't scrimmage and you don't do any of that? How could you be more skilled? You're not more skilled. You're a better athlete. You're bigger. You're faster and you're stronger. That's all true. But don't under any pretense believe Reggie White couldn't play in today's NFL. What do you think Reggie White would do to that kid you just drafted from the Eagles? What do you think he would do to that kid? That kid would look like one of those little balls in a slingshot. Reggie would kill that kid. There'd be a no moss. Do you actually think those guys in New York could actually block Lawrence Taylor with the limited skill that they have at preparing to play offensive tackle? Lawrence Taylor would kill quarterbacks. He would be completely illegal in today's NFL because he couldn't hit the quarterbacks the way he did back then. He just couldn't do it. And he would be doing it often. He'd be like that Burfict kid. They would be suspending him every week for the hits on the quarterback. You think they're going to allow him to come around the corner and hit people like that? Jim Brown would run everyone over. 9'1", 100, 6'3", 240 yards. And you think that the defenses could stop him? Again, you're right, Yale. They're bigger, they're better, they're faster, but they're not more skilled. They're not more skilled. But they would make up for it because of their athleticism. Like when you watch Micah Parsons today, and you see guys like Chase Young, Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith, you see guys like that, you look at it and go, man, that guy could play in a 3 technique. He could play in a 5 or a 7. You could put him in a 34, 43. You couldn't do that shit back in the day. You couldn't. You guys weren't big enough. And the offensive linemen were gargantuan back then. Now they got great skill. I mean, Lane Johnson today, 6'5", 6'6", 330 pounds, 320. Look here, Jordan Mailata is even better example of what Yale's saying. Yeah, here's a guy 6'9", 350 pounds, and he looks like he's 260. And he could probably run an under 5 flat 40. He's got immense feet. A guy like that would play defensive tackle back in the 70s and 80s. That's how good he was. Earl Campbell's probably the closest to Jim Brown. The only difference was, and Earl Campbell had great speed on him. The only difference was that Brown had Olympic speed. Hope there's a football heaven. Jeremiah, well, I'll tell you what. If there's a football heaven and you don't have Jim Brown in it, then you shouldn't have a football heaven. Because that guy is one of the angels that belongs in the football heaven. I'm not saying he was a perfect human, because there's a lot of shit in his life story. But when you talk football-wise, if that guy's not in your football heaven, there ain't a football heaven. Okay? Or is it? Whew. How funny we started off with DeSean Jackson wanted to retire a an Eagle, and we get the news that Jim Brown has passed. Best backs in NFL history. Brown, if I had to have one game where I needed a running back to carry me to a championship, it'd be Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, OJ. If I had to give you the 5 greatest NFL running backs, man, I can't wait to get our Hall of Famers on. 5 greatest NFL running backs. Wow. Wow. Brown, Peyton, Emmitt, who would be the other 2? OJ. I saw OJ on Monday Night Football go for 270 yards versus the Steel Curtain, and there was nobody on that team. And he just ran through them on Monday night. I was a little kid. I never had my jaw open more than watching one man kill a great defense led by Mean Joe Green. Man, Barry wasn't better than Emmitt. No, he wasn't. He was more electric. But it's not true. Emmitt didn't have minus yard plays. Barry had a ton of them. Okay? Jim Brown was a great actor too, man. Absolutely. Actually, if you think about it, Jim Brown was really, him and the guy who played Shaft were probably your first really great black actors. Dirty Dozen. Jim Brown, I grew up when Jim Brown was, when I grew up as a kid, Jim Brown was like one of the very few black actors I remember. And when he was in a movie with Raquel Welch or something, whatever, I remember watching him. Brown, Peyton, Emmitt, OJ. Who would be the 5th best back in pro football history? You had to win a game. I know. Listen, hard to put OJ in there. OJ's a great back. I don't care about the shit off the field. TJ Hooker too, man. Yeah. Hey. I mean, O.J. Simpson was a tremendous football player. Dickerson? Who would we put at 5? Jim Brown, Walter Payton. Man, I told you. Hey, man, Walter Payton's final game. Gale Sayers didn't play long enough. But hey, though, Ray, check this out. Dude, I told you my crazy situation, man. Friday, I'm getting ready to play against the Florida Gators. That Sunday, I line up against the 87 Bears. 2 years removed from the 85 team. I can't. Hey, Aunt Betty, I'm sorry. I know you're not feeling good. But I tell you what, this was my first professional game. John Madden and Pat Summerall are calling the game from Tampa Stadium. I don't even have the plays. I barely have elbow pads. I don't know anything. I don't even have a playbook. And I'm standing on the sidelines. It's my first professional game against the Bears. It was a big – I went in a supplemental draft, me and Chris Carter. Carter went to the Eagles. He played with the Eagles that Sunday. And Bosworth went to the Seahawks. And they used the 57th pick on the next year's. Anyway, so I'm lining up, and I go like, I swear on my God, I went just like this. Holy shit, there's Walter Payton. And everybody on the Bears and everyone on my team started laughing because I went, holy shit, there's Walter Payton. Guys, you had to be there to hear this. All of a sudden, the huddle breaks. I walk to the line of scrimmage and I see Walter Payton and I go, holy shit, it's Walter Payton. Dude, the referee, everyone, they stopped the play and everyone's laughing. I went, holy shit, it's Walter Payton. Yeah. And Payton, after the game, he signed an autograph. I got an autograph from him, man. I wanted to get an autograph from Walter Payton, so I got an autograph from him, man. And I just couldn't help myself. Holy shit, it's Walter Payton. I'll think about that fifth one. By the way, we're going to do a lot of Jim Brown conversations today, but I want to show you how hard it is for the Eagles to get back to the Super Bowl. Also, we haven't even got into our topics. Bottom of the hour, one of the Hall of Fame voters that knows Jim Brown or knew Jim Brown, who passed away today, Howard Balzer, will join us at the bottom of the hour. He covers the Arizona Cardinals. I want to know what kind of impact Jonathan Gannon is having on that team. We'll get his thoughts on what Jim Brown brought to the NFL and his place in NFL history. So he'll join us. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football